Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to HHQI's Underserved Population Network call. We're glad you're here with us today. And joining, this is Misty Kevich, from one of the nurse managers from HHQI. And also joining us from our team is Cindy Sun, Crystal Welsh, Sharon Miller, Andrea Lepke, and Misty Dyke. So we, again, want to welcome you today. We think this is going to be a very interesting and informational webinar today on coordinating veterans' health care. So a few housekeeping tips. We do want your questions, so please ask any questions through the Q&A box at the lower part of the screen or on your sidebar, or you can put them into the chat box if you would like. So do submit those throughout the presentation. There will be a Q&A session after our speaker has presented, and we'll handle as many questions as possible. So submit them early so we can make sure that we can gather your questions and ask those. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speaker today that we're very fortunate to have. And today's speaker is Jeremy Novak. He is the Business Development Manager at the Veterans Care Coordination. His job, he serves in honor of all veterans, including his grandfather who served in the Army during World War II. As a business development manager, he gets to play a vital role in building relationships and providing education for new referral sources, and teaching is his passion. He also holds a master's degree in business administration from Webster University in St. Louis, Missouri. He also has a love of music and teaching guitar, piano, music appreciation, music theory to children, adults, as well as adults with special needs. So with that, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Jeremy.
Well, thank you very much, Misty. I really appreciate the introduction, the great introduction, and I just want to thank everyone for being on the call today. I really appreciate everyone's time. I'm here to talk about Veterans Care Coordination today and tell you a little bit about our services and how we could possibly be a really great resource to some of your senior veterans and surviving spouse patients. So with that, I'd like to get into our next slide here and talk a little bit about our company, a little bit of background. So who is Veterans Care Coordination and why use us? And just starting out with our mission, you know, we're here to improve the lives of veterans and surviving spouses by assisting with establishing non-skilled home care services by means of the pension with aid and attendance benefit, and that is a benefit through the Department of Veterans Affairs. So we specialize in the benefit and help these families access it in order to pay for that home care service that they're needing. So who are we? We are actually a private organization. We are not affiliated with the VA, but a private company, and we are owned by Mr. Kyle Laramie, who is he's actually an accredited claims agent through the Department of Veterans Affairs. Not saying that he's employed by the VA, but that he's gone through the proper certification through the Department of Veterans Affairs to make sure that the information and the guidance that we're providing for these families really falls in line and runs parallel with the VA regulations. We are based in Lake St. Louis, Missouri, but even though we're based in St. Louis, we do operate nationally because of our partnership with home care agencies across the United States. Since beginning this journey, we've actually been able to successfully assist over 9,200 veterans, surviving spouse, and their families in accessing this pension with aid and attendance benefit and receive the home care services that they were needing. So why use us? We really positioned ourselves to be valuable in educating veterans and surviving spouses regarding an option that may be available to them when they've progressed in age and require assistance with their ADLs and really can't afford to pay privately for that home care. So that's just a little brief background on our company itself. Looking at the next slide, getting into some details as far as the pension with aid and attendance. Maybe some of you have had experience with this benefit. Maybe some of you have not. But the pension with aid and attendance was designed back in the 1960s. It was designed specifically for veterans and surviving spouses that have non-military service-related medical conditions. that require regular assistance with their activities of daily living. So this is kind of the flip side of the coin as a VA disability compensation. So anyone who is in the military and let's say they were injured while in the service, there's plenty of VA disability compensation for that category of veteran. So as I said, this is kind of the flip side of that coin. I served in the military during a wartime period. I was fortunate enough to come out unharmed. Many years down the road, I've kind of lived my life away from the military, away from the VA. I didn't really have much of a need for it. I'm now at an age where I could really use some assistance, and this is the benefit that was really designed for that category of veteran. And then one of the ways this benefit can be used is to help purchase home care services. It is designed as a medical expense reimbursement program. So there are other ways it can be used, such as paying for nursing home care, paying for assisted living facility care, those kinds of avenues. We as a company, we are more interested in keeping the veteran or spouse comfortable in their home, aging in place. So that's the aspect of those funds that we choose to focus on and to help these families achieve that home care service. Looking at this slide, this is a snapshot of the 2015 benefit, and the benefit does go up on a yearly basis. A little cost of living increase, which is great. But the benefit, as you can see here, is actually a monthly allotment that varies according to the category that the veteran or spouse fits into. For example, a veteran married to a spouse, notated there on the left-hand side of that is a couple, if eligible and approved for this benefit, would be reimbursed a little over $2,100 per month for home care services. Whereas a single veteran, if approved, would be reimbursed a little over $1,700 per month, and so on and so forth. Like I said, it just depends on the category that they fit into. These benefit amounts are not capped, so it is a lifelong benefit as long as the veteran or spouse maintain their eligibility for it. Okay, so the next question is, okay, well, who qualifies for this specific benefit? And there are actually 4 main points of eligibility. And the first point has to do with the veteran's military history. So it is a VA requirement that the veteran served at least 90 consecutive days of active duty service, with at least one of those days falling within a wartime period. So we're talking about World War II, we're talking about Korea, we're also talking about Vietnam. Those are the veterans that we're really dealing with at the moment. The second point of eligibility has to do with their medical conditions. They have to have those non-military service-related medical conditions that require assistance with their activities of daily living. And this is, of course, verified through medical documentation that we work hand-in-hand with the veteran or surviving spouse's physician on getting that appropriate documentation. Looking at the third point of eligibility, here we're kind of getting into the financial aspect of the veteran or spouse. So the VA says that the client can have up to $80,000 in assets. Now that is excluding one home and one car, so anything above and beyond that is what the VA would be recognizing. Now, while the VA does say they can have up to $80,000, we actually know from years of doing this that the VA really uses a sliding scale based on the age of the veteran or spouse. So the $80,000 asset ceiling may be appropriate in the VA's eyes for a patient in their 60s. However, if we're dealing with a patient, let's say in their 70s or 80s, that asset ceiling drops considerably. We're looking more between $30,000 and $40,000 as an asset ceiling. So it really just kind of depends on the age of the patient. Looking at the fourth and final point of eligibility, here we're still kind of looking at the financial aspect of the patient. And it does have to do with their income, but it's not necessarily how high or low their income is, but more of a medical expense to income ratio. So the VA wants to see that their medical expenses are exceeding their monthly income. And to just kind of illustrate that point, here we have a kind of a graphical representation of a single veteran. And when we're screening this single veteran for eligibility, we're first talking about, what are their current medical expenses. And it's important to know the kind of medical expenses that the VA will recognize have to be fixed medical expenses. So those reoccurring costs on a monthly basis. And typically speaking, when we're screening these families, we're looking at Medicare Part B, We're looking at supplemental insurance that they're carrying. For the most part, that is all we can calculate. Things that will not necessarily count are things like prescriptions they're taking or medical equipment or supplies they've purchased. While those expenses can add up to be quite a bit, they are varying in their cost. They're not that fixed cost. Looking at the middle column, their income. So we have to calculate, okay, what are they bringing in on a monthly basis as far as their income? So there we're looking at what are they bringing home as far as Social Security or maybe some retirement or pensions they're collecting on. So with those figures, we have to look at that ratio. Okay, do they have enough in medical expenses and fixed medical expenses to exceed their income? If they don't, and they go directly to the VA and apply for this benefit as is, we know that he's going to be denied. So how can we get him to meet that part of the eligibility? Well, we know that the VA considers home care services a fixed medical expense. We also know that this being a single veteran, if he were to be approved for this benefit, the VA would reimburse a little over $1,700 worth of home care services on a monthly basis. So if we go ahead and put those services in place and establish that expense before we send the application off to the VA, then we get a column that looks like that on the right-hand side. Now we've got a little over $1,700 worth of home care services on a monthly basis, plus their normal typical medical expenses they've already paying out. By putting those expenses in place, we kind of force the family to meet that eligibility. That's kind of step one there. Okay, now we have to take a look at the VA's processing time. So once we've established that expense and we've sent the application off to the VA, how long does it take an average client to have their VA claim approved and processed and everything like that? Well, on average, you're looking at about 6 to 12 months. So that means that this single veteran would have to foot the bill for those services for 6 to 12 months on average while they're waiting for the VA to approve their claim. And the truth be told, the kind of clients that would qualify for this benefit and be eligible, low income, low asset, really aren't going to be able to afford these services through that processing time in order to get that approval and get that money, that reimbursement flowing for them. Now, fortunately, the VA, once approved, will retroactively reimburse the family back to the time of application. But again, are they going to have enough funds to pay for those services while they're waiting for their claim to be processed? And in most typical cases, the answer is no. So a lot of these clients really kind of fall through the cracks with the VA. This is one of the reasons that our company exists. How can we help these kinds of veterans not fall through the cracks and be eligible and receive that benefit? Well, something that's rather unique to our company is we can provide them some loan assistance. We do have a program that's called our Veterans Appreciation Program, and it's a loan program designed to help them get through that hump of that processing period. So we will basically finance the cost of their care from the time we send the application until they're approved. Okay, that of course that assistance is a free loan assistance that is interest-free. We're not looking to make money off of interest or anything like that. We don't charge fees. We only charge for home care services. That's important to note. So the basic idea is, can we get them through that processing period in enough time to get them that benefit and have that money flowing for them to pay for those services? Now, while we can offer that loan assistance is, of course, going to be on a case-by-case basis. We definitely have to look at all factors, and there are some qualifying factors that go into it. So there are some instances where we are unable to provide that loan assistance. And those cases are going to be where, maybe we're dealing with a single veteran who's has a late-stage cancer or stage 4 renal failure. A medical condition that unfortunately, they could unfortunately pass away during that processing time. What happens to that retroactive payment if they pass away during that processing time before they're approved? If the veteran were to pass away before they're approved, the VA stops that claim then and there, and none of those funds are retroactively paid back to the family. So as a company, we definitely have to weigh the risks on are we going to be able to, if we loan this money, are we going to be able to recoup that on the back end? So we have to. So while we can't guarantee everyone 100%, loan assistance, I can tell you that at least 80% of the families that work through us are receiving some or all of their care taken care of by this loan program. Looking at the next slide, here we're getting more into our internal process. When we receive a referral, how do we take these families through this process? And it's important that because Kyle is that claims agent that's accredited by the Department of Veterans Affairs, our mission and our internal processes have been created to adhere strictly to the criteria set forth by the VA's Code of Federal Regulations. So everything we do really runs parallel with the requirements of the VA. So we do have our 8-step process set up to help these families through. So looking at step number 1 there, our first step when we receive a referral is a simple screening for eligibility. So once we receive a referral from any one of our numerous referral sources, it's passed on to our intake department, where it's given to one of our intake specialists, and they have 24 to 48 hours to contact the family. We want the screening done as quickly as possible, and it's going to be through this screening that we're going to be able to tell, is this family a good fit for this benefit or not, through some various questions. If they're not, that's very valuable information to give them, so they're not going through this long 6 to 12 months process, going directly to the VA, just to find out on the end that they were never really eligible in the first place. But if they are, we'll say, hey, Mrs. Smith, you're a great fit for this benefit. It appears you'd be eligible for 55 hours per month in home care services. Would you like to proceed with the application process? So even if they're a great fit, it's always going to be family's decision on whether or not they want to move forward. If they want to move forward, great. We'll convert that file and send it over to our next department, which is our customer service department. And they're going to take care of the next few steps of our 8-step process. Looking at step number 2 there, it says assist with obtaining the original military paperwork. And this has to do with the DD-214, the veteran, which you may or may not know is the technical term for their discharge paperwork. It is a VA requirement that they were honorably discharged, of course. And sometimes the family has this paperwork in their possession, sometimes they don't. If they don't, the National Records Office is actually located here in the St. Louis area, roughly 15 minutes from where I sit. And if they don't have that paperwork already in their possession, we can get that for them. We have a great rapport with the building, and we can expedite the process of getting that paperwork to them. Looking at step number 3 there, it says assist clients with obtaining the supporting evidence documents for their claim. So for any client's given situation, we know exactly what kind of supporting evidence we need to gather. So if we're dealing with a couple, we know the VA is going to require a copy of a marriage license. If we're dealing with a surviving spouse, we know that they're going to want to see a death certificate. Documents like these. This also includes medical records for the client. Again, we work hand in hand with their physician on getting the appropriate medical documentation to verify the claim. Looking at step number 4 there, assist in answering information regarding the VA application. I don't know if any of you have seen the application for the aid and attendance pension benefit, but it's about 35 pages long. It's an incredible document to complete, let alone for someone who's needing home care services. So it's the role of our customer service department to really walk them through that process. This is what this means. This is how this is filled out. We really try very hard to make that process as easy on the family as possible. And then once we've gotten the application filled out, we've gotten the supporting documents back, it's our role at that time to check the file, recheck it, make sure the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. We want to be 100% confident that it meets all the requirements of the VA before we will take our next step. That next step, of course, is setting up home care services in the home. So once we're confident with the file, we contact one of our quality home care agencies in their area. That's their chance to get into the home, do an assessment, and get those hours set up with the family. And if they do qualify for that loan assistance, that is the time where we set that up, and that will pay for their care through that processing period. Looking at step number 6 there, provide referral sources and provider network with updates throughout the process, and answer questions for the client. So this step really has to do with communication. So for anyone who sends us a referral, we want to make sure that you're in the loop, constantly communicating back and forth with, what's the status of the process with the family that you referred to us. And this goes back to even the referral process, when you first send us a referral. So we have those 24 to 48 hours to contact the family. Following that first contact, you'd be receiving some emails, and those are just simple updates letting you know, where we are in the process and how things are going with the family. The intention there is just to kind of, keep you always in the loop. Looking at step number 7 there, it says assist with understanding any VA documentation requirements until reimbursement. So at this stage of the game, we've gotten care started in the home. We've sent the VA the application. While we're waiting for that VA processing period, the client may receive some VA documentation, which it can be kind of confusing sometimes. We're always there for support on answering questions about the documentation that they're receiving, letters that they be receiving throughout that processing period from the VA. In addition to those kinds of activities, at this point, we are actually attempting to expedite that processing period, trying to get that approval a little bit quicker. We have an entire department here. They sit on the phone all day long with the VA reps at one of the 3 federal pensions centers in the country. The intention there is to keep our files at the top of the stack, so they're not sitting on anyone's desk for any length of time. Through those kinds of efforts, we've actually been able to successfully expedite that VA processing period down to an average of 3 to 4 months as opposed to 6 to 12. So, again, we really want to try to get that processing period done as fast as possible to get that reimbursement flowing for that family to pay for those services. Looking at step number 8 there, it says assist when monitoring medical expenses to maintain eligibility. So at this stage, care is going great in the home. We've gotten the approval back from the VA, so that reimbursement is coming directly from the VA now, paying for those services. And we're going to continue to monitor the benefit on behalf of the family. We're going to monitor all their financials, monitor that asset level, monitor their medical expense to income ratio to make sure that that consistently meets the requirements of the VA for their situation. Because what can happen if those levels do rise above what the VA accepts for their situation? We're looking at, they can have their benefit reduced. They could have their benefit taken away altogether. And then the worst case scenario is, incurring a debt with the VA, owing some of that money back to the VA. That is the worst case scenario. And, if that does happen and you owe money back to the VA, they're not going to be shy about, garnishing your Social Security to get that money back. So, we take great pride in making sure that the family can maintain that eligibility, that there's no interruptions in their services. Looking at this next slide, what does the partnership look like between, our referral sources? So anyone willing to work with us and be advocates with us and helping find these families, we're going to provide as much education as needed regarding the benefit itself as well as our internal process. Obviously, that's what this webinar is designed to do. Looking at the next one, we will provide you with referral forms and also show you how to submit referrals directly from our website. We also have brochures that we're happy to provide for you. Looking at the next bullet point, for any eligible candidates, we're going to assign them to a qualified provider within our network. So it's important that you know that we have a very strict guideline on what kind of company we will contract with. The company has to be licensed. They have to be insured. Their caregivers have to be W-2 employees. We don't want them to be independent contractors. We want to make sure that all those quality care systems are in place to take good care of those clients. The next one, and I kind of mentioned this before, we will continue to monitor the client's benefit and their care, ensuring the client maintains their eligibility and receives the best care possible. So once a client is actually receiving care through one of our network agencies, we assign them to one of our client care specialists. And it's the role of the client care representative to make sure that they monitor that care and they do the follow-up. And they're constantly calling them, hey, Mrs. Smith, I just want to call you and see how your care is going. Have there been any changes to your asset level, any changes to those to the income level? We really kind of monitor that on a monthly basis, and every year we report to the VA, their correct medical expenses and income ratio to make sure we can report to the VA that they're continuing to maintain their eligibility for this benefit. On the right-hand side of this slide, you see just a quick snapshot of our referral form. And this is a great tool to use when you're out in the field, social workers and such. You're talking with families that you think they may be a good fit for this benefit. This has got a few pre-qualification questions on it. Things like asking, was the veteran honorably discharged? What wartime period did they serve in? If we're dealing with a surviving spouse, it's a requirement by the VA that they were married to the veteran at the time of the veteran's passing. They also could not have remarried following the veteran's passing. Is there that need for assistance with activities of daily living? What is their asset level? Is it less than $80,000? The more information we have to go on when we're initially starting that screening, the quicker that process takes. And for anyone who is interested in referring families to us, we always want to make sure that we get the correct referring person's information, again, so we can make sure that we're updating you on the progress of that client. This slide here, I like to show our staff here in St. Louis. You can see all of our staff on the right-hand side of that page, and we're about 65 strong now, and we have a great, committed, and passionate team. We all have a vested interest in what we're doing. A lot of us are veterans ourselves, or are married to veterans. Obviously, we have veterans in the family. So we're very passionate about what we're doing, and we're always constantly looking for advocates to help, find these families and assist them with us. So we would love to, have anyone on board, and please, by all means, reach out to me if you are interested in working with us, and we'd like maybe some additional information as well. This page shows my contact information. You're welcome to email me or call me at any time. My door is always open for additional questions. And I just, once again, I want to say thank you so much for allowing me to present our company and a little bit of information about the aid and attendance pension today. Misty, I'll go ahead and send it back over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Jeremy. Go ahead and continue to let the questions come in through the Q&A box or through the chat. We have a variety of questions that are already coming through, so please continue to submit those. So I think a couple of these questions came in very early, and I think you may have answered some of those, but I think it would be a good recap anyway. So the first question is, I have a patient who is 100% disabled. His wife now needs non-skilled care like assistance with ADLs and IADLs. Would that spouse qualify for assistance, and is the availability of the assistance financially based?
All right, so we have a patient who is 100% disabled. So I'm assuming that the veteran is disabled or the spouse is disabled.
It says a patient, so I'm assuming it's the veteran that is 100% disabled, and his wife now needs some non-skilled care like assistance with ADLs and IADLs, and they're asking about would the spouse qualify. Now she's also in need of assistance. Right.
Well, the answer is if the veteran is receiving 100% VA disability compensation, the VA is very strict on not being able to double dip. So these are two separate federal benefits: the VA disability compensation versus the aid and attendance pension benefit. So in the case where a veteran is receiving 100% disability, that's upwards of sometimes $3,000 per month that they're receiving from the VA. That is more of a compensation that the highest, the couple rate for the aid and attendance pension benefit would pay out. So this would be kind of a case where, they're really already receiving as much money as that they're going to get from the VA disability compensation. This would not be a better benefit than that 100% disability. So we might have to dive a little bit deeper on that disability. Is it VA disability that they're receiving? So I definitely would have to get a little bit more information to really answer that with 100% certainty.
Okay. All right. I think that, again, it definitely shows the complexity and all the variables and issues that I know in home health that we have had in identifying what programs patients are available for.
Absolutely.
We have lots more questions, so please keep them coming. What is the best way to determine a veteran or a woman's vet's eligibility?
You know, the best way is, you know, using that tool, first of all, as when you're in the field, that tool of the pre-qualification referral form. You know, it's got 5 or 6 questions on that. I really kind of went through those questions. You know, that is kind of the preliminary to give you a better assessment on, you know, does this family have a chance at qualifying? That's as much information as you probably want to deal with. You know, you definitely want to use us. You know, we definitely are the specialists in the benefit, and can definitely go into more detail. The important thing is, if they've gotten, you know, through those questions and you've got yeses on all those questions on that referral form, that's a good chance to send that in. That doesn't necessarily guarantee that they're going to be eligible, but you've definitely got a better sense of, do they have a chance? You know, it's gonna take really talking with one of our intake specialists who can really dive, you know, deeper into the complexity of this benefit and look at the bigger picture and you know, with a microscope as well, to give the family a better understanding on if they qualify or not.
Okay. And I have a question, because I know you talked about, and I can't remember I know you talked about aid and attendance as one of the programs, but you did reference another program and all. And my follow-up question to that is being a veteran, obviously you gave us the 90 days before and 1 day that must be within a war. Is that a requirement for all of those 2 programs that you referenced earlier, or just for the one, and I can't remember which one it was?
So those requirements are specifically for the aid and attendance pension benefit. Okay. As far as wartime eligibility on you know, whether it's VA disability compensation or other VA programs, you know, I'm not really sure, because I'm definitely not the specialist on other ones besides the aid and attendance. So, you know, we're specifically working with the aid and attendance pension for home care services. Those dates are listed on the referral form. You know, those are at your fingertips, so that you don't have to play any guessing games with those dates. And it's very helpful if the family already has that DD-214. You know, that's where we would want to verify the dates of service and if they were activated during those periods.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to skip, kind of go down to this next question, because it's all about eligibility questions. If there is more than 1 car or house, which one gets counted towards the asset, the more or least expensive of the 2?
Oh, that's a very good question. You know,
I thought so too.
Unfortunately, you know, I'm definitely not the specialist where that comes into play. You know, again, the intake specialist is definitely who we would want to set that question up with the family. I would assume it would be the most expensive one that would be exempt, but I definitely wouldn't be able to answer that with 100% certainty.
Okay, that was a great question, Christina. I really, I thought, oh wow, I'm just counting numbers, let alone trying to get down to, you know, yeah, what if most people do have 2 cars. So that was a really great question. Okay, now we're going to move a little different direction, Jeremy, how can our home health agency become one of your qualified home care agencies? That's the first part of the question.
All right, so, you know, we primarily contract with non-skilled home care agencies because those are the kinds of services that we are providing for these families. You know, I have great relationships with home health agencies all across the country, great contacts with social workers, and you know, they really use us more as a resource to help their families move on to the next level of home care. You know, obviously they're working with skilled care. You know, and maybe they're needing some non-skilled personal care in the home. You know, so that's really the avenue. If we have a company that does both, you know, we definitely would want to have them reach out to us. We do have other business development managers that have certain territories that go through a similar webinar with any companies who are wanting to contract with us and be one of our network home care agencies. So they go through the same kind of process and work with a contracting process with one of those business development managers as well. So they just need to contact us.
Great, and a lot of home health agencies have multi-lines. They include a private service line that provides those types of contracts and services, or, you know, and have waiver-type programs contracts. So that is something in the realm of what a lot of home care agencies do have contracts perhaps within their communities. So that kind of answers that. And then here's a question, and I'm not sure. So who pays for the services for the VCC?
Who pays for the services for VCC? Oh, are we wondering where we get our revenue source? Is that the question?
Yeah, I'm thinking that might be where that is coming from.
So how, the question that I'm interpreting it as, how do we make our money? Which is a great question.
Yeah, and she said, yeah, here she followed up. And where does VCC get their funding? Is it a nonprofit? That was the question.
We are not a not-for-profit. The only way we are able to make revenue is through home care services, and it's through our contracting process with a home care agency. We negotiate a discounted rate compared to what they might, typically charge a private pay client, and our revenue kind of fits within that discount. But we only charge for home care services. You cannot charge for screening a veteran or spouse for eligibility. You cannot charge for helping veterans or surviving spouses fill out VA applications. Those things are illegal. So if anyone tells you that they're charging for those services, please beware. We only charge for home care services.
Okay, so if an agency feels that a patient may be qualified and really wants to, and the family was interested in, initiate the services, all the screening and all the pre-work that you're doing is something that they continue to go along without any cost to them, any cost to anyone else, that is all part of the services that you provide.
Correct. That is absolutely 100% correct.
Okay, great. Okay, these have been great questions, everybody, and I'm just going back to make sure I haven't missed anything. And Misty and Andrea, if you see something that I have missed, please chime in. Sometimes watching two places at the same time can be okay. And then the form, Misty D has posted too. The form is available on the VCC website. The pre-qualification referral form is on their website, so she did put that in. You know what, Misty, that's in the Q&A. I don't know if that went out to everyone or if you can put that into chat. Oh, here we go. Here's another question. Can they get drug, alcohol, and or gambling problem help through this program or programs? You've talked about a couple.
The aid and attendance pension really, the way we utilize those services are really through that home care, the home care realm. So as far as additional services beyond that, I guess we really have to make sure it's, we're qualifying it as a medical expense. So I'm not quite sure how that would be. Would it come through a home care agency to help with those services? I'm not quite sure. But primarily, we're looking to help families with specifically, non-skilled home care services.
And get the title, aid and attendance is really focused on ADLs and IADLs, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, trying to keep this straight in my head.
Sure.
Okay, a good question. All right, I'm going to give another call out here for any additional questions that come in. In the meantime, what we'll do is go ahead and I will go ahead and move to the next couple slides just to kind of wrap up and give you another minute or so to put in your questions. You can connect with HHQI through numerous ways from our social media. Make sure you tap in the Underserved Population Network. We also have the newsletter every other month. So if it's something that you're not currently receiving and would be interested, just send us an email and in our HHQI mailbox at hhqi@wbmi.org. We try to cover all the topics for underserved populations, including dual eligibles. We are in right now, our next Underserved Population Network call will be January, believe it or not, next year already. And the topic will be related to dual eligibles and trying to work with in a care transition models, especially for that very poor dual eligible statuses, especially in metropolitan type cities, but really applicable across all settings. So that'll be our next topic. And let me just double check to see if there are any additional questions. I am not seeing any. All right. Well, with that being said, if you have anything further, you're welcome to email HHQI, and we'll try to follow up. We really thank you very much, Jeremy, for speaking to us today. We know this is a very complex systems to navigate for the veterans, and there are resources available for them, especially in that transition into the post-acute, even outside of home health, but into our private services, and continuing to keep them at home and out of a nursing home. So we thank you again very much for speaking with us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Good. And also we want to thank everybody for attending today. We appreciate your time, and we hope to see you again in January. Thank you.